Hello, my name is Griffin Suber, and I'm an associate editor with Log and Timber Home Living magazine. For the past year, I've been chronicling the story of a single home and its journey from dirt to done. The home is that of Peg and Tony McVeigh in Canyon City, Colorado. The home was designed and manufactured by Timbercraft. I'm joined now by Bob Sternquest, who for 21 years was the owner and CEO of Timbercraft. How you doing today, Bob?
Good, sir. How you been?
I've been well. So the fifth edition of our Dirt to Done series covered external materials and the home's mechanicals. So Bob, the McVeighs opted for concrete log siding. Can you talk a little bit about that choice and some of the benefits?
Sure. I think first it's also important to understand kind of the mindset that timber frame customers have, because in our industry with log and timber frames, that's really our whole industry, but they're very different because with a log home, you've got wood on the outside, which is going to mean you're going to have some sort of perpetual maintenance that you're always going to have to do. Whereas with the siding that they chose, which is really cool because it looks like log siding, but it's concrete log siding. So they don't have the maintenance. There is a little bit of maintenance in the fact that it is a concrete, and every 5 years they may have to spray a sealer on it, to keep that strong color to it. But overall, it's really a maintenance-free siding. And in the timber frame industry, a lot of our customers, that's kind of what brings them from the log home side over to the timber frame side. So the maintenance is really important. But one of the things that I think is really super unique about the product of the concrete siding is that they use EPS foam, the same type of foam that's being used in insulated panels. So the siding itself, all by itself, has an R8. And so when you add it to Tony and Peg's house, and with that project, we actually used EPS. So their walls are an R24, add another R8. So we're talking about an R32 for their home with virtually no maintenance at all. And I think that's what a lot of people, are looking for on a timber frame. I mean, it is always nice, and with a lot of our customers, we'll put some accents on the outside, but it doesn't matter if it's a 2x4, a log, or a timber. You put wood outside, there's going to be perpetual level of maintenance. And I think that's what certainly Tony and Peg were shooting for, to avoid the maintenance, and they're getting that log home look, and it's a gorgeous product. And I think the viewers are going to be really excited when they get to see the finished photos and whatnot. And one of the other things I know Timbercraft is going to do is that we are going to have an open house at some point this summer, assuming the world calms down COVID-wise, and be a great opportunity for people to come out and see it.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's good to know. Yeah, as far as the concrete log siding goes, it kind of sounds the best of both worlds there.
It is, yeah.
And so as far as the mechanical utility room, what kind of strategies come into play when designing that space? Is there an optimum placement in the house, in the floor plan, or size, or that sort of thing?
Well, there usually isn't one typical size for mechanical rooms. And one of the things that James Miller and the design team over at Timbercraft, they do a great job in the design process, is talking to customers to understand what those different mechanicals are. So it's not uncommon that you want to put all of these things in the same area. So you're going to want to line up. Well, let's first start with what's typically in a mechanical room. So you're going to be looking at the fuse box, you're going to be looking at HVAC. A lot of these homes also have wells, so you're going to be dealing with pressure tanks, softeners, things like that. And it's not uncommon, and what they have in their house is radiant in-floor heat. And so they've got the registers for that. So it's really important in the design process, be it an architect or design professional, that you consider these components, because the one thing you really want to do is give as much guidance to those subcontractors when they're building the house. It's important that all those tubes aren't coming up 70 feet away from where the boiler is going to be. You want to keep that stuff centralized and be able to move it and not turn on the hot water and have to wait 4 or 5 minutes for it to circle on. So ideally centering that. Certainly, every HVAC guy would love to put it dead center of the basement. Obviously, with finished spaces, things like that, that's not always practical. But it's really important in the design process to understand what those different things are that the customers want. That way, we can design it efficiently. And with Peg and Tony's house, we did have the in-floor heat, we had the tubes, things like that. So, there's some additional thought that's put in to the project when you do design it. But to kind of get back to like what size, they're always different sizes because it really depends upon, each home.
Absolutely. I know if I was designing a house, not having to wait for the shower to get hot would be top of the list.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
You mentioned the radiant floor heating. Are there any special design considerations for a feature like that, as far as the insulation or the R value or the boiler system, that sort of thing?
Well, the stronger the R value, the less any HVAC system is going to have to heat or cool. So the less that you're losing the temperature escaping out of the house, obviously, the less it's going to run. With their house, one of the things that I thought was super, super unique was the style in-floor heat that they did, because I actually hadn't seen it with all the homes that we do. So in the basement, in the concrete, certainly, they put the PEX in, they poured the concrete on top of it. But what was unique about the in-floor heat that they had is instead of it being on top of the first floor itself, it's actually below the floor joists.
Right.
So what they're doing is they're taking PEX and they're running it on the bottom side of the OSB, and then taking a tin and aluminum, and they're nailing that on. So the pros to the system that they have is that they didn't have to buy, because there are some wonderful products out there. There's a lot of homes will put it on top. They'll pour gypcrete on top of it. There's also another product which has grooves in the OSB and has a tin over the top of it where they set that down inside of it. Great products, but very expensive. On this side, they didn't have the expense, but on the other side, they actually had some labor in stapling that and putting that all throughout. But they are super, super happy with the whole system. It is pretty impressive, the R value that they have, because they're getting the R8 with their siding, they're getting the R24. So it's absolutely amazing. And when I spoke to Peg this morning, I just checked in with her, saw how things were going. She had mentioned that they're in Colorado, they were in the 20s. However, the house was so tight, she doesn't believe that her HVAC system ran at all yesterday. That just the passive solar that was coming in, all of that helped heat the house. She did say, hey, I'm usually keeping the house 55 to 60 because we're painting, we're doing all this construction. But it is pretty impressive, how that system is working. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if in-floor heat is the coolest thing in the world. I have it under the floor of the bathroom in my house, and those chilly Michigan mornings, walking on a warm floor. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's definitely
cool. Yeah, impressive is the word. You said it. So that was the 5th edition. The 6th edition of the Dirt to Done series walked readers through finishing the home's interior. So if you can remember, Bob, off the top of your head, talk a little bit about the floor plan and the interior layout. Yeah, if you remember any of the design goals there.
Oh yeah. The one cool thing about this house, it's on top of a mountain. It's on top of a hill. I mean, everything has a great view, and that was really the key. And it's not uncommon with the timber frame. We're really focusing on wide open spaces, and that's really what Peg and Tony wanted. They wanted that wide open space. You stand in one corner, you look all the way across. Now, back when I was in college, they would talk about maximizing square footage and getting additional spaces. With the timber frame, what we're looking for is to be able to look all the way across. For some people, we design homes that are kind of like barns, but oftentimes it's these big open great rooms, just like what they have. And so really the biggest key was having it wide, having it open. And Peg in particular was super, super helpful. She had done so much research before she signed with Timbercraft, and she had a very detailed interview process that she went through. So it was really neat to work with her, particularly as we got into areas like kitchens and things like that.
Is that more common to have the clients be interviewing the manufacturer?
Being in this industry for 3 decades and watching the internet grow throughout that process, at the trade shows in the late 90s and early 2000s, I'm explaining this is a timber. this is mortise and tenon. Now customers are so well educated, and I know I'm on the AIM media platform here, but you guys have done such a great job throughout that time just educating people that they come and they question, they want to make sure that we know our ducks, that we have our ducks in a row and whatnot. So it's been interesting, certainly watching technology change, but really how smart customers are and having a good idea. When we were really expanding and building hybrid timber frames like this house, where you're focusing the timber in the high use areas, everybody seems to have a good comprehension of all of that now, and that's certainly thanks to the internet and the Timber Home Living platform.
Well, we appreciate hearing that and seeing that it is rippling out into the world.
Yeah.
I remember when we originally interviewed, or when I originally interviewed you for the print article, you had mentioned a kitchen triangle in the home. So can you kind of explain what is a kitchen triangle and how that factored into the open concept you were just talking about?
Sure. Basically, a triangle is your three main working spaces, which is going to be your refrigerator, your stove, and your sink. Kind of having those in close proximity. I typically see them 4 to 9 foot range, and Peg was on top of her game, and the triangle. And when we do our webinar on this, she will really expand on her goals of what the kitchen was. She definitely knew her things. She had very much laid out, because again, in the kitchen, going back to what we talked about just a minute ago, the view, making sure that she had a view of Pikes Peak and all of that, and having a good functioning space with views. She as well as James Miller, the lead design, and there at Timbercraft, he did such a phenomenal job of making sure that it's well-defined space. There's some pantry space. It is just a very, very well laid out home.
Yeah, we can't wait to see the finished results. Another thing I remember you mentioning in that interview was that Timbercraft held their pricing for the McVeigh's timber frame home. So what does that mean exactly, and why is it something that Timbercraft would do?
Well, certainly what we've witnessed in March of 2020, the world was grounded. I mean, it was regardless of how you feel about COVID, it really was something unprecedented. In all my years of business, I'd never experienced anything like that. I've been through the riots, the Northridge earthquake, the market crash, things like that. But it was a very unique time. So it's not uncommon as a timber frame manufacturer that customers will sign a contract and it will be 3, 4, or 5 months down the line until we're actually on site erecting the structure. And what ended up occurring in 2020 was certain products were completely not being fabricated. And then we moved into supply chain issues. Panel screws, for example, attaching the panels to timber frames, there was a shortage in our industry on that. And one of the things that really hurt a lot of companies was the cost of OSB, the OSB that the SIP panels are being made from. Those you were able to buy a 4x8 sheet anywhere from $7 to $8 a sheet. Suddenly it went to $57 to $75 a sheet. And we had several projects that we said, your timber frame package is, I'll make up a number, $40,000. Suddenly it was costing us $50,000 to produce it. And some companies backed out of their fabrication agreements. But at Timbercraft, we didn't do that. It's really important because, see, part of what you're getting when you're working with a timber frame manufacturer, certainly is the timber frame, but it's the company. And and these are very intimate relationships because we're building the legacy home. So it was important to us, even though on the few of the jobs we got clobbered over the head on pricing, to still go ahead and to meet the deliveries. I know that there were I never want to say anything about anyone else. I know there were other firms that struggled and weren't able to do that. By the grace of God, we were able to do it and keep our heads above water, and we have very happy customers. And I'm really grateful that we were able to hold our pricing. The biggest issue I think Timbercraft and a lot of other timber framers are facing, there's still some supply chain issues, particularly with hardware. Fortunately, we haven't had any problems with anything else. It's really OSB has come back down to earth, so our pricing is close to what it was. But obviously, we're seeing a little bit of inflation. We're seeing things tick up a little bit. Right. But it's critically important if you're going to go down this road with someone, to not say, "Hey, I'm sorry, the world's bumped their pricing up, and I'm going to charge you more." We just, there's no way in the world we would do that at Timbercraft.
That's excellent to hear. And from talking with you and Peg, I know especially building a house during this time has been really hard to plan things out, and I think doing that has just given people a little bit of comfort.
Definitely, and for any customer, I think the one thing that's really unique about this house is they've had every curveball in the world thrown at them during the construction. I mean, just trying to get a set of plans submitted when they only come to work once a month, and trying to get a permit issue, and going through the pandemic and COVID and the shortage of employees. I mean, it would have made a great reality show, actually. So
it's a good lead into what the next article is going to be about, how they all DIY'd it themselves. Tony had a previous career as a contractor, and apparently every other contractor that comes to the site tries to steal him away for another job to do. But hey, Bob, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. And anyone that's interested in what we've been talking about should check out the print and digital versions of the Dirt to Done series, which can be found on our website. Thanks again, Bob. Appreciate it.
You bet. Take care.